Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan. I'm the Executive Director here at the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. We are so glad that you have joined us today. As you know, the focus of our show is to talk about the lives and experiences of women. We do talk about gender-based violence, human trafficking. We also like to talk about women in business, politics, barriers, gender inequities and pay equity, all of those topics that really have a core discussion about women. And so we're really glad that you've joined us here today for that discussion. And we hope and we know today is going to be a really good discussion where we can talk about women in leadership and also great work that is happening in one of our sister community agencies. Before we begin, we do want to thank our Indigenous community. Thank you for allowing us to share in this space, on these lands, to have these conversations. We are honored by your wisdom and traditions and how we can all be allies. And so thank you so much for allowing us to talk and have these conversations here today. So I am thrilled to welcome my guest, Meaghan Chambers, who is the Executive Director of the Elizabeth Fry Society. And so they have a wonderful service that they provide here in the community, which is really important for all of us to know more about and also to understand what their needs are and how, as community members, we can rally beside them. So we're going to dive in deep with Meaghan today to truly understand what those services look like. So welcome, Meaghan. I'm really excited about our conversation today.
Thank you, Teresa. Me too.
Okay, so let's just dive in. So I know that you offer a wide variety of services in the community. Talk to us about the different programs and services you offer, but also who you offer them to.
Sure. So our main focus of service provision is directed to individuals who have been criminalized and or experiencing poverty or homelessness in our community. The foundation of our work certainly stems from working directly with women involved in the criminal justice system who have been incarcerated. But since then, certainly our local programs have expanded. We have many gender inclusive programs. Some of the foundation really started around our halfway house and the development of that program, which has since sort of grown to provide overnight shelter and halfway house services to women and gender diverse people up to 37 a night. We have a couple of different residential programs that we've recently expanded. We're offering a operations of a youth transitional home in Bracebridge. We just opened a really exciting collaborative project with the Busby Center in the county of Simcoe called Paula's Place, which is a permanent supported living environment for people who are experiencing chronic homelessness in our community. And we also offer a wide range of justice-related programs. So we offer youth and adult pre- and post-charge diversion services for individuals who have been accused of minor offenses and could benefit from going through a community service program instead of being formally charged, and certainly knowing the restrictions that a criminal record can have on somebody. These are programs that once you complete them, your charges are withdrawn. And we also do a lot of prison visitation specific to women and gender diverse people, both locally and around the province. We have a worker who works at Central North Correctional Center, which is the local provincial correctional institution in Penetanguishene, and she delivers programs specific to the women who are incarcerated there and some transitional and discharge supports to individuals. We also do advocacy-based prison work across the province with our other sister organizations, where we're reviewing conditions of confinement that women are subjected to and reporting back to the ministry and escalating human rights issues and making recommendations for changes to conditions for individuals.
Wow, that is an incredible array of services that you provide. So, my goodness, what is your hope and I don't know if this is going to be easy to answer or not, because there's just such a vast, I mean, difference too in some of those programs and services in terms of the intent, right? But in terms of your clientele, let's talk who have an experience with the criminal system, let's say. What is your hope through the services that you provide for those service users? Like, what do you hope? Yeah.
Our hope is always to see individuals thriving in community in a permanent housed situation. So often I think criminalized populations and populations experiencing homelessness are almost differentiated, when often it's one and the same for a lot of the folks that we're working with. And certainly there's lots of barriers associated to the criminalization of somebody. But our hope is that we can provide a transitional service that folks are coming to our agency for, that will then help them thrive in community, that will help sort of build a foundation for them to be able to create their own community once they leave our resource.
Yeah. And so I think this is an important question for our community to understand. Why should the community be very happy that you're doing this work? Why should they be like, okay, yes, we do need that?
Well, I think it's important really to humanize our community members, and because somebody has been criminalized, inherently people don't want to be bad. And sometimes and often actually in our current state of inflation and certainly the affordability issues that our entire country is experiencing, people are trying to survive. And with that sometimes comes decisions, whether you want to make them or not. And people are criminalized for it. And that can create a long-standing impact in your life, if not supported through that process. So really, we're just trying to support our community members and these are your neighbors, your brothers and sisters and family members and mine. So really, I think it's important just to treat clients who are accessing service provisions as humans, as your neighbors.
I love that. It was such a great description that you've just offered, Meaghan. So help me to understand. Let's say that there is a woman who has been incarcerated for whatever reason, and she's going to be released. What could the services look like for her that's going to help her in that journey?
It can look different depending on the scenario. So lots of times incarceration causes you to lose community supports. It causes you to lose your employment. It causes you to lose your housing, sometimes access to your children, where our supports can act as one. We have an emergency shelter and halfway house, so you can come to our location on many types of release from incarceration, whether that be bail, parole, probation, and reside with us for a period of transition while you're looking for safe housing. Or we also have a transitional support program for people who are likely to experience homelessness or could experience homelessness upon discharge. That is a transitional case management support that walks folks through system navigation, through the spectrum of homelessness to housing, through referrals to other community organizations based on need.
Yeah. So I'm curious, are you seeing a large amount of folks who, let's say, have been incarcerated, they're coming out into the community, that are not able to find housing, supportive, safe, affordable housing? Is that your experience as well? And is there any direct relation to that in terms of that history of being incarcerated?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a cyclical nature to homelessness and incarceration because it is such a disruption to your life when you're incarcerated. And like most people in our community, even who are working and somewhat stable, most people are 1 to 2 paychecks away from an experience of losing your housing. So we're seeing really high remand rates in institutions, which means that a large portion of the people in our provincial jails have actually not been convicted of the crime that they've been charged of, which is a trend that we're seeing not just locally, but across the country. And those rates have really shifted. In Ontario, it's up to 70%. So 70% of people incarcerated have actually not been found criminally guilty and are deemed innocent during a period of incarceration. But like I said, that period of incarceration can really change the stability of many factors of your life, including housing. So we are seeing a lot of people who are being discharged from institutions everywhere who are finding a really challenging time at finding housing because of the affordability rates, because of the low vacancy rates, and the really competitive rental market that folks are facing.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. There's so much learning to happen, right? And so why do you think that number is so high, 70%? Like, where is the gap? Where's the downfall happening in that whole system?
Some of it sits in release policy and bail policies specifically. So folks are being remanded, incarcerated, and instead of being let out. Some of it is also because a large portion of people who are incarcerated in our provincial system are experiencing poverty and homelessness. So they've been criminalized because of their marginalization to begin with, and then because they don't have housing stability, are kept in an incarcerated state. So we're seeing large remand rates, and it's also more challenging to plan for bail if you don't have stable housing or if you don't have a family member who's willing to sign for bail. Like, there's many contributing factors associated to it.
My goodness. Yeah, it's people will often ask us here at the shelter, what, in terms of ending the violence against women, what's the solution? Well, there isn't just one. It is a multi-system overhaul, I think is the word I would use, right? And the court processes are just one of them, finances, all of it, right? And the intersection of all of those things with the person in the center, with all of these systems circling around them and all working against them. It is always amazing to me how successful clients actually are and can be, and resilient, even amongst all these systems that really seem like they can be working against them in so many capacities, right? So it's just an incredible piece here. Talk to us about how mental health and addiction plays a role in the success for people as well.
Yeah, I think it's important as a community for us to really look at the stigma associated to mental health and substance use. There's lots of people who experience mental health and who are substance users who remain housed and who are not criminalized, but certainly some of our most marginalized folks are living through those experiences. And it becomes really challenging, particularly with the affordability of housing right now and the competitive nature that exists. Some folks who are low income, who are experiencing mental health, who are active in substance use, are fighting against the same individuals who can pay a year's worth of rent up front.
Yeah. So Meaghan,
Yep.
I'm wondering if we can just put a pin in that, because it's such a big topic and I really want to give it a lot of time to talk about.
Sure.
We're going to just take a really short break. So I'm sorry for interrupting, but I really want to give that a lot of time. So just going to urge our community to stay with us, because there's a lot here that we want to unpack about understanding the lives and experiences of women and everyone, men and women and gender diverse folks. So stay with us and we will be right back. Welcome back to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. We're having a very good conversation with the Executive Director of the Elizabeth Fry Society, Meaghan Chambers. And so we're really glad that you've come back to this conversation. You know, we're talking about the great work that eFry does and multitude of programs and services and a very vast array of services that meet different needs in the community. Before our break, we were starting to talk about folks who have some mental health needs and also substance use needs. So, you know what, Meaghan, I want to carry on with that conversation. Talk to us about the significant role that mental health and substance use plays in the lives of people.
Yeah, I think it's really important when we're talking about substance use and mental health that we really talk about the hierarchy of needs, because we often see narrative that people need to be well to be housed, or that people have to be in a certain frame of mind to be housing ready, when somebody is experiencing such crises like homelessness, like a period of incarceration, the most important thing is meeting those very basic needs, which we talk about as shelter, as food provision, as access to water. And so I think the most important approach when talking about individuals with complex needs is really looking at it from a housing first perspective, and that it's actually best that we try and find housing, help this person try and find housing as quickly as possible for them to be able to move forward with addressing some of the more complex things that they're experiencing as an individual. And having preconditions for some of those services or supports or housing placements like sobriety or like being on medication, that may not be that individual's journey, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think that there is a misconception or thinking that, you know what, this person's got to get everything in their life sorted out, mental health, addiction, substance use, before they are eligible for housing. Because
when you're sitting in a period of hypervigilance for such a long time, like it's actually really important that is regulated by meeting the most basic needs.
Yeah. And it's such a backward way to think about that, right? Because here in our shelter, we aim to be barrier free. And so we do have women that come in who are active in their use. They have significant mental health and they are actively being trafficked. They are not barriers for us to provide service to those women. We want to work with them on that journey, and they can have huge success with those factors still in their life. And I'd love to know your thoughts about this. I think it's really hard for the community to get their ideas around what does success look like for someone. Because some folks may think that means you are not using, that means your mental health is good, you're not panhandling. And, you can be successful in your housing if you got all those things under control. Is that the case, Meaghan?
No, I think people have choice and autonomy and agency over their own lives. And as social service organizations, or as general community members, or as family members, we actually have to release that expectation from our way of thinking. This is not our journey. This is somebody else's journey. And how they go about that journey is up to them. Their goals, their desires, their wishes are theirs. They aren't ours. And how they reach those is also a journey that is up to them. We're here to support that journey and hold space for that journey, but we don't dictate how that happens.
Yeah. I frequently provide trauma-informed training in the community. And one of the videos that we watch in that training is by Gabor Mate, and it's called The Myth of Normal. Mm-hmm. And it's there's just a little snippet in there for him that he talks about what healthy communities look like in supports of folks who have some kind of need. And he says, with all the pharmacopoeia and systems, and services that here exist in Canada, you know, the US, we are not the healthiest communities for folks that experience any kind of oppression or mental health, addictions, marginalized folks. We are not the best model of what that support looks like. It's actually a community in Africa where people are embraced for their difference. They are joy in the communities, and people work with the differences as opposed to trying to fight against those differences, right? And so I think it's just a really interesting conversation, because how do we create empathy and compassion in our community to rally beside folks? And I get fear, and I get that bad things can happen to people sometimes, and we lay blame on certain community or, you know, individuals, right? I totally get that. But thinking about the majorities of, you know, groups of people that do crime, right? You know, I'm always interested in the statistics about that. Is that our homeless population primarily? Or is that our white collar population? Is that our gang related population, right? Like, how can we differentiate that so we really know who those numbers are attributed to? You know, I think data can speak volumes here. Anyway, I'm rambling a lot here, but it's a topic that is near and dear, I know, to both of our hearts, about trying to work with where the community's at, but also we have an understanding about the people that we support in our services and how great they are.
Yeah,
And
sometimes visibility of homelessness or housing insecurity, I think, causes a lot of community fear, and just because of the unknown component of it. But for the folks who are experiencing it, and certainly the folks who come through our services, like, these are really resilient individuals who are very kind, who care about their community, who want to be accepted by community. They're not generally seeking to cause problems. The homeless population, I think, is over-policed and over-surveilled, and that's why they're criminalized so heavily. But we have to remember they don't have a home. So things that are happening publicly are happening because they don't have a home for that to happen privately.
it's such a great point. It's such a great point. And I think that that leads right into that piece again for me, right? About, you know, we have a great focus of attention on this group of people, but do we actually have the data to say the other side of that coin, and who really is committing the crimes that don't get the same publicity, don't get the same TV coverage and social media coverage, right? And we're so, as a community, honed into the homeless population, and they can't sneeze without somebody knowing about it. You know what I mean? And so I guess I think it's an interesting question, but would you say that there is really a focus on the criminalization of the homeless population?
Absolutely. And I think you can see that even at the latest motion that was put through Barrie City Council, I think, is a prime example of that, where you know, council is looking at bylaw and policy to surveil and push aside some of the survival tactics that both community is trying to do to help individuals who are marginalized, and also activities that marginalized folks are trying to do to survive, like panhandling. I think when we talk about the population experiencing homelessness, or even criminalized women in general, the vast majority of women who are criminalized are not criminalized for violent related offenses. And I think that's an important part to make. We have a large system of incarcerated women who are not actually a threat to society in the form of violence. And I think that's a misperception that a lot of people have around individuals who have either been incarcerated or been criminalized for some reason.
See, and that is why I think this conversation is so important, because it's nuggets, really good nuggets of information like that, that is helpful to bridge awareness in our community, right? And so, oh my goodness, our time has gone by so quickly, right? And gosh, there's so much that I want to talk to you about. And I think that we need to come back together and have another conversation so we can unpack this more, right? Because again, it would help our community to see what we see. We know what they see.
Yeah.
We see that on the social media, we see it on the news, we see that. We want to try and help the community also see what we see, those great resilient people that we work with, right? And instead of, brushing a stroke with everybody, when a crime may happen here, let's say it's a homeless individual, okay, well, all homeless people are bad. Okay, wait a second. We're using that same brush stroke to say that everybody is in that same boat, and that certainly is not our experience as service providers. You are doing incredible work in the community, and I know as a social service agency as well, a nonprofit, that fundraising and support from the community is vitally important. I want to take a minute just to say, what are your needs and how can the community rally behind you?
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that forward. Obviously, as a not-for-profit organization, we're always looking to raise funds to continue the services that we're providing, but also we're always looking for donations of supplies, of hygiene supplies, of tents and tarps, of items that we can provide the women and gender diverse people that are in our shelter, like journals and slippers and pajamas. All of those things are really important in sort of welcoming somebody into a program during a period that's really destabilizing for them. So yeah, please think of Elizabeth Fry Society if you're looking to donate.
Yeah, absolutely. Great organization, and really so important. They're doing such important work that benefits, of course, their clientele, but it benefits our community. And that's so important for all of us to know, right? When you support an agency like eFry, you're helping yourself, you're helping your neighborhood, you're helping your community. I want to give you the last word here, Meaghan. So what are your words of wisdom that you want the community to know about the work that you do, your clientele? What do you want to leave with them that's going to make an impact for them?
I think I want to leave the thought of really humanizing the folks that we support. They have faced so much judgment and stereotyping through their experience, and I think it's important to really look at the broader picture of, it's not just this incident or this picture in time that person is experiencing. They've had an entire life, an entire journey that could have been filled with very traumatic events, that could have been including system oppression and generational trauma, and there's lots of things that lead us to the point where we're at. So I think I want to leave it with humanizing the folks that we serve.
It's a great word, right? Like remembering we all are individual people, right, with incredibly traumatic lives and on a spectrum. And how do we build compassionate community where everyone belongs, everybody participates? So Meaghan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really hope that that this is really going to help our community to understand the work that you do, the great work you do, and really just a bigger picture about the folks that you're seeing come through your doors. So thank you to our community for joining us today. We hope we'll see you here again next time on Educate, Inform, Challenge. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.